Hey everyone. So, in a world that is just jam-packed with conflicting voices, where do you actually turn for real answers? It's a tough question, right? Well, an ancient prophet named Isaiah wrestled with this exact problem thousands of years ago. Today we're going to unpack his incredibly powerful warning found in just 4 short verses of Isaiah chapter 8.
This question is as old as time itself. It's something people have grappled with forever. When a crisis hits, and it always does, our search for answers can lead us down some pretty interesting and sometimes pretty dark paths. In Isaiah's day, the people of Judah were standing at a major crossroads, and the prophet was about to confront their choices head-on.
Okay, let's dive right into the text. So verse 19 kicks off by showing us the popular but totally forbidden advice that was going around at the time. The nation was in crisis, and people were being told to turn away from their faith and instead go looking for guidance from mediums and what the text calls familiar spirits. Now, that phrase, wizards that peep and mutter, it probably sounds a little strange to us today, but get this, it was meant to be taken literally. It's actually describing the chirping sounds and the whispered chants that mediums would use, all in an attempt to channel the spirits of the dead. This was a very real and very forbidden practice back then. And right in the middle of all that bad advice, Isaiah just cuts through the noise with this powerful, straightforward question, also from verse 19. Should not a people seek unto their God? He's laying out a stark, logical choice. It's like he's saying, why would you go messing around in these shadowy practices when the ultimate source of truth is right there for you? It's a direct challenge to their shaky faith. And he doesn't stop there. He follows it up with another hard-hitting question right at the end of the verse. For the living to the dead. I mean, think about the logic here for a second. It's profound. Why on earth would you ask the dead for guidance on what's happening among the living? They're in a completely different realm. It's a question that's really designed to make you just stop and think about where you're getting your information from. So after basically demolishing the faulty logic of seeking out mediums, Isaiah gives him the correct standard in verse 20. He says, to the law and to the testimony. This right here is the ultimate litmus test. The law, that's the law of Moses. The testimony, that's the words of God's prophets. This is the benchmark. This is the standard that all guidance should be measured against. So Isaiah is really setting up 2 fundamentally different paths here. On one side, you've got what everyone else is saying. Go to the spirits, go to the wizards, seek out the dead. But on the other side, you have Isaiah's standard. Seek God, and rely on his established law and his prophets. He's making it crystal clear that there's absolutely no middle ground. And this all leads to the final verdict, delivered right at the end of verse 20. If any message, any piece of guidance, fails to line up with God's law and testimony, well, the conclusion is simple. There is no light in it. In other words, it has no divine truth. It's empty. It's worthless. So, what happens when a whole society chooses a path with no light? Well, verse 21 starts to paint a really grim picture of the consequences. It describes a people plunged into this period of just immense hardship, where hunger and frustration boil over into pure rage, and they direct that rage at their leaders and even at their God. But what does that phrase pass through it really mean in a historical sense? Well, you have to look at the history to get it. We're not talking about a bad week or a tough month here. This refers to the brutal, agonizing decades between 732 and 701 BC. It was a period just defined by the Assyrian invasion, by constant war and turmoil. I mean, we're talking about an entire generation living through this kind of suffering. And this suffering, this harvest of darkness, as Isaiah calls it, had very specific parts. First, there was widespread hunger because of the war. That, of course, led to this intense frustration, which then just exploded into anger at their leaders. And the final result, just as Isaiah predicted, it was a state of total anguish and desperation. To really wrap our heads around this feeling of complete and utter despair, there's a fascinating parallel in another ancient record, the Book of Mormon. The story of a group called the People of Limhi gives us this really powerful, tangible example of the exact cycle of despair that Isaiah is describing. And this quote, wow, it just brilliantly illustrates the final stage of that cycle. After trying to fight their way out through anger and rebellion and failing every time, the people of Limhi were just completely broken. They were humbled, even to the dust, finally submitting to their fate. It's such a powerful echo of the spiritual and physical defeat Isaiah was warning about. And all of this brings us to the final, haunting conclusion in verse 22. So having looked upward only to curse God, they now look down to the earth and they just find more trouble, more darkness. The passage ends with this absolutely chilling line, "They shall be driven to darkness," a state of inescapable despair that was the direct result of their choices. So in the end, Isaiah's warning from over 2,700 years ago leaves us with this huge question for our own time. Because this passage, it isn't just ancient history. It's a powerful case study on the consequences of rejecting light. And it forces us to ask ourselves, in our own moments of crisis, where are we turning for answers?